Have you ever looked at your own life and wondered when exactly you started changing? Not the obvious changes, not the job, the city, the haircut, or the new routine. I mean the quieter shift, the one that happened inside you. The moment you began watching yourself more carefully than anyone else ever did. The moment you realized you think differently, feel differently, carry things longer than most people seem to, and you don't even remember deciding to become this way. It just happened, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You notice it in small moments, in how long you replay conversations after they end, in how deeply you feel a slight change in someone's tone, in how a simple comment can sit in your chest for hours, maybe days. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. Other people brush things off, other people move on, but you don't. Your mind doesn't. Your body doesn't. Something inside you holds on, observes, analyzes, protects. You've probably asked yourself why you're like this, why you can't just relax into life the way others seem to, why your thoughts feel layered, almost textured, like there's always something happening beneath the surface. You function, you show up, you smile when needed, but inside there's constant movement, a scanning, a quiet awareness that rarely shuts off. It didn't start yesterday, and it didn't start randomly. Self-transformation doesn't always look like a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes it begins as adaptation, as survival, as a child learning, without words, how to read a room before speaking, how to sense a mood before asking for something, how to stay small or helpful or quiet enough to avoid becoming a problem. No one may have said, "Don't feel." No one may have directly ignored you. But maybe your feelings floated in the air without landing anywhere. Maybe your excitement was met with distraction. Maybe your sadness was met with silence. And slowly, your system learned something important. It learned that being deeply aware was safer than being deeply expressed. So you adapted. You became observant, thoughtful, careful. You developed an internal world that could hold what the outside world didn't. And that internal world grew strong, complex, intelligent, but it also grew heavy. Now, as an adult, you might notice that you overthink before you speak. You rehearse conversations in your head. You anticipate reactions. You feel responsible for emotional balance in rooms that don't even belong to you. You sense tension before it's visible. You read between lines that others don't even see. And it's exhausting. This is the psychology of self-transformation. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. When a nervous system grows up without consistent emotional validation, it becomes skilled at prediction. It learns to scan for subtle shifts. It becomes hyper-aware of tone, posture, pauses. Your brain didn't become analytical for no reason. It became analytical because understanding people meant safety, because reading the atmosphere meant stability, because noticing everything meant you could prepare, and preparation feels safer than surprise. So now you live in a state of subtle readiness. Not panic, not chaos, just readiness, a low hum beneath everything. You might call it overthinking, but underneath it, there's history. There's a younger version of you who once needed to figure things out alone. Imagine someone who walks into a gathering and immediately senses who is comfortable and who isn't. Someone who adjusts their energy to match the room. Someone who laughs at the right moments, contributes just enough, never too much. And by the time they get home, they feel completely drained. Not because they dislike people, but because they were regulating more than anyone realized. Imagine someone who lies awake at night, revisiting a small interaction from earlier in the day, a look, a sentence, a slight delay in response. Their mind searches for meaning, not because they enjoy analyzing, but because unresolved emotion feels unsafe. The body wants clarity, it wants reassurance, it wants to know it didn't miss something important. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. When you grow up feeling unseen, you learn to see yourself from the outside. You monitor your tone, your reactions, your needs. You become both the actor and the observer in your own life. And over time, that self-observation becomes identity. You call yourself sensitive, deep, intense, maybe even too much. But what you really became was adaptive. There's a loneliness that comes with this kind of transformation. Not the obvious kind. You can have friends, relationships, a full calendar, and still feel slightly separate, because your inner world is layered, detailed, emotional, in ways that don't always translate into casual conversation. You crave depth, but often settle for surface. You want to be known, but exposing that much of yourself feels risky. So you offer pieces, measured pieces, and people think they know you. But there are parts of you that only come alive when you're alone, when you're driving with music on, when you're walking without destination, when you're sitting in the quiet of your room thinking about your life from a distance. That's when your real processing happens. That's when your emotions rise without interruption. That's when you feel both the weight and the beauty of being this aware. Self-transformation, in your case, may not have been about becoming someone new. It may have been about becoming self-contained, self-reliant, emotionally independent in a way that feels strong but also isolating. You learned not to expect too much, not to need too loudly, not to rely too heavily. And now, when someone does offer closeness, part of you softens and another part braces. You might wonder why rest feels unfamiliar, why slowing down sometimes increases anxiety instead of easing it. When your system is used to scanning, stillness can feel exposed. When your identity formed around awareness, relaxation can feel like losing control. So you stay thoughtful, alert, engaged with your own mind. But here's something quieter. What if your transformation wasn't just about protection? What if it also shaped your depth, your empathy, your ability to sit with complexity? You notice subtleties others overlook. You care in ways that feel almost instinctive. You hold space naturally. You understand nuance. That didn't appear by accident. It was formed, layer by layer. Still, that doesn't erase the fatigue. There are days when being this aware feels heavy, when you wish your mind would quiet down, when you wish you didn't feel shift so intensely, when you wish you could experience life without constantly interpreting it. And in those moments, you might judge yourself. You might ask why you can't just be simple, easy, uncomplicated, but maybe you were never meant to be simple. Think about how you respond when someone finally sees you, when someone asks a deeper question and actually waits for the answer. Notice how your shoulders drop slightly, how your voice softens, how something inside you relaxes. That reaction tells a story. It tells you that you were wired for connection, not isolation, that your independence was learned, not chosen. What happens inside you when someone misunderstands your intentions? When your sensitivity is labeled as overreacting? Does it echo longer than it should? Does it tap into something older than the moment itself? Sometimes the intensity of present emotion isn't about now, it's about accumulation. Years of adjusting, years of interpreting, years of holding yourself steady. The psychology of self-transformation isn't dramatic. It's cumulative. It's subtle rewiring. It's the nervous system shaping personality. It's the mind building strategies around unmet needs. And by the time you reach adulthood, those strategies feel like who you are. That version may quickly, needed openly. That version may feel distant now, or faint. But sometimes you catch glimpses in spontaneous laughter, in creative impulses, in moments when you forget to manage yourself. Those glimpses matter. Have you ever asked yourself what you're still bracing for? What you're still preparing against? If the danger you once anticipated is even present anymore? Or if your system simply hasn't updated yet? There's no pressure in that question. Just curiosity. Just awareness. You've done something remarkable, even if it doesn't feel like it. You turned invisibility into insight. You turned silence into observation. You turned emotional neglect into emotional intelligence. That transformation came at a cost, yes, but it also created depth, and depth is not something everyone carries. Tonight, when things grow quiet, notice how your mind begins to wander. Notice the themes it returns to. Notice the emotions that surface without being invited. They aren't random, they're part of a long story. A story of adjustment, of resilience, of quiet becoming. You don't need to fix that story right now. You don't need to rewrite it. Just recognizing it changes something, even slightly, even subtly. Awareness softens edges, it loosens tension, it allows breath where there was tightness. Self-transformation is still happening, not in dramatic leaps, but in gentle shifts, in how you speak to yourself, in how you interpret silence, in how you begin to separate past echoes from present reality. It's slow, almost invisible, but it's real. And maybe the deepest transformation isn't about becoming someone new. Maybe it's about understanding how you became who you are, about seeing the logic in your patterns, about respecting the intelligence of your coping, about realizing that your sensitivity was never weakness. It was adaptation. It was protection. It was awareness shaped by experience. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are someone who transformed quietly. And now, as you sit with that realization, let it settle without pressure. Let it exist without needing to act on it. There's nothing urgent here, just understanding. Just a gentle recognition of the path you've walked internally for years. The child who learned to observe, the adult who learned to analyze, the person who is still learning how to simply be. That learning is ongoing, calm, unfolding at its own pace. And for this moment, that is enough.